Our next speakers are Duncan Kervell and Steph Versteeg, both from KMR, Kaipara Moana Remediation in Tokoro. So Duncan's based in Whangarei, and he's had over 20 years' experience working in soil, land, forestry and freshwater project management. He is currently, he's been involved in research, design and interim management of the Kaipara Moana Remediation program, and in the last 2 years has contracted as a land management specialist to KMR. Steph is the strategic business manager for KMR, and which includes developing environmental policy in She has been, prior to that, involved in environmental policy in central government, coordinating community conservation projects and working with companies to improve their environmental and social impact. So welcome, Steph and Duncan.
Kia ora koutou, ngā mihi nui kia koutou, ko Steph Versteeg tōku ingoa.
Kia ora, Duncan Kervell tōku ingoa.
So we're just going to give a quick overview today of some of the work that's been going on in the Kaipara catchment. So everything within the red boundary there is part of the Kaipara ecological catchment, 600,000 hectares draining into one harbour, the Kaipara Moana. Sediment is the key contaminant across the catchment. Around 700,000 tonnes a year are estimated to be deposited into the harbour. And to restore the harbour, we really need to be managing that catchment as a whole, whilst recognising that not all river systems are the same within the catchment, and that we need to focus on critical source areas and prioritise, as Tom Stevens mentioned earlier, to really have cost-effective mitigation. So there's a whole history to the Kaipara Moana Remediation program, and some of you will be familiar with that. I understand there was a bit of that covered off at the last NZARM in 2019, and some of you may have been to the Moscrips farm up in the north of the catchment. But the work that we've picked up the mantle of well predates us. From 1996, there was the Integrated Kaipara Harbour Management Group. That was a catchment-based project, and that really spearheaded this kaupapa around restoring the moana. Through that program, there was development of a strong mandate across iwi, councils, landowners for increased ambition and resource. There was the development of the Kaipara Harbour Sediment Mitigation Study. So that really highlighted the scale of the remediation and the investment needed, and helped inform the development of an indicative business case that positioned the program partners to make a case for funding in 2020. So in 2020, since you last heard from the program, or I think it was pre-program at that stage, but since then there was a memorandum of understanding signed at the end of 2020 between the Ministry for the Environment, Ngā Maunga Whakahi o Kaipara, Te Runanga o Ngāti Whātua and Te Reo Hau, Northland Regional Council and Auckland Council. And that has committed us collectively to a 10-year program to reduce sediment that is delivered into our waterways and ultimately the harbour, and established a joint committee of partners to govern that project. So the program's MOU embeds the values of kaitiakitanga and partnership into the program, and the goal of reducing sediment load by 46% over the program. And we've got some really core operating principles around co-governance, which are embedded in the way that we work. We take a catchment-based approach that takes into account wider social, cultural, economic and environmental objectives. We have an approach that is based on one-to-one advice and supporting targeted interventions using some of the tools that Tom spoke of earlier. But it's a 600,000 hectare catchment. We are a small team and we do this through working in partnership with very many others. We have a number of partnerships in place. These are growing, and this is critical to us reaching landowners across the catchment, building support for the kaupapa and ownership, local ownership and development of solutions. So this helps us grow on the ground remediation, but also is really critically building local capability. And Duncan's going to talk about these a bit more. Oops, sorry, jumping back and forward. Handing over to Duncan.
Kia ora whānau. It's a lot scarier up here than it is down there, I can show you. How do we do farm plan at scale? This has been the question that keeps on coming. How do we plan? How do we support landowners? How do we get that one-on-one advice? How do we have trusted advisors? How do we understand the inherent risk of the landscape? How do we map it? How do we map it more than farm scale, paddock scale? How do we match that mitigation? How do we understand the landowner's driver and aspirations to do what first? All of this, and how the hell do you spend $300 million in 10 years with no people? So this is the question that I've been asking for a while, and hopefully we've come up with some solutions. We need people. We need good people. We need people that live in both sides of the cultural ledger. We need probably, I've actually been quoted in national media, we need an army. The nation needs an army, we just need a small platoon. We need about 50 people. We've trained 55 people in a year. This is the first cohort, mixed age, mixed culture, many of them very starting of their career, some are at the end of their career. How do we bring these people together and implement what KMR needs, which is going out on farm and spending a lot of money? That's what we need to do, and spending the right money in the right places. So we've got, let's pull a figure, 2,000 farms. They need 3 visits in a year, because we're giving out money, so you have to check and audit and all this stuff, and you get 3 years of work. That's 18,000 visits. What do you do? What systems do you need to do 18,000 visits? So that's the next challenge. We need tools. We need systems. We need feedback loops. We need pointy-headed people like Tom Stevens to give us really good models. And we need farm action plan, digital farm planning tools, which we've heard a lot about and seen examples of in the slides. Oh, this has got clickers. Here we go. Because if you have feedback loops, then you can start to prioritize. So Tom talked a lot about telling us where the problem is so we can fix it and provide the water quality, understand the water quality implications. We've got a farm planning tool so we know where, when, why, and how much work has been done, so that it feeds back into the model and adapts. So if we give Tom a bunch of information in 5 years' time, he'll tell us where to optimize. He'll tell us which wetland to go where, and then that will go into the farm plan so that our field advisors, who don't necessarily have all the expertise, 20 years expertise, to have that conversation with the landowner, and they've got a priority list on farm. It's already mapped. And it kind of looks like this. We've got oblique photography for every single stretch of Kaipara and Northland, so we can see it in that quality and zoom in. We've got highly erodible land, we've got bare earth, we've got bare pasture, we've got streams that are actually there, we've got vegetation that is actually there, and each of those little blue lines is the catchment that water is coming from. We've got fine scale, paddock scale information that's going to be embedded to a tool so that our rangatahi, our farm planners, can provide the best information to our farmers. That's what we've been doing in Kaipara Moana. So the next stage is we've been working in the riparian zones. We're getting some trees in the ground. 280,000 is a good number of trees, but we need to get much, much more trees. So we need to go into big landscape afforestation, that 10 to 30% that Peter talked about. That's a great number. We can aim for that and provide that optimized landscape economically, environmentally, and do the right thing. Thank you very much. I'll pass the last point over to Steph.
Cool, yeah, so currently there are 2 pieces of key work underway that will enable us to really take a full landscape approach. Right now we are dealing with the low-hanging fruit around wetland restoration, fencing, riparian planting, but as Duncan mentioned, we'll be moving up into the hill country and we're looking at how we can do that and take a really integrated approach to landscape restoration. The other key piece of the puzzle, another really foundational piece of work, is being led by our Uri partners. It's a project called Kōrero Tuku Iho, and that's about really documenting place-based knowledge and ensuring we appropriately take this into account and incorporate this into program design and activity. With these in place, we'll be really, thank you very much, we'll be well placed for scaling up in a more sustainable way and to really target our interventions in a way that deliver cost-effective mitigations that are really place-based and locally appropriate. So the key point that I really wanted to end on is that the importance of that technical innovation and also that real social, cultural and behavioural change together are critical to our delivery at scale, so that technical innovation can really help us make targeted investments and deliver cost-effective mitigations, but with a voluntary program to build social momentum, we really need to be working with that local knowledge, local people, local leadership, and developing these partnerships to grow capability and participation. And so it's those 2 things together that I think are equally important to us achieving our kaupapa. Kia ora, tēnā koutou.
Thank you, Duncan and Steph. In actual fact, I think they're being a little modest because I have heard of feedback to KMR regarding the partnership value there from an iwi perspective, and it's been very, very positive. So congratulations for what you've achieved already. And certainly has some challenges ahead, no doubt about it, but all the very best.